This is Gemara Sanhedrin Daf Lamed Beis, a learn of this month. The month of Tevis has been generously sponsored by a close friend of the Daf as Lezchot Alias Neshama for Rav Aryeh and Rav Ya'akov, whose yahrzeit was an Aleph Tevis. V'siyata Deshmaya, as we begin a new parak, the fourth parak of Sanhedrin. All the learning should be an incredible Alias Neshama for Rav Aryeh ben Rav Ya'akov. As well, the learning should be an incredible Schos Refuah Shalema for Tinag B'Miriam Ahuva B'siyata Deshmaya. We should continue seeing incredible successes, benchmarks, hallmarks, and hopefully, ultimately, the Refuah Shalema Gemura B'siyata Dishmaya. We're holding on Lamed Beis Amud Aleph. We are at the top of the Amid as we begin the fourth parak. Begins the parak Echad Dine Mamanis. We begin, really, this is almost reminiscent of the first Mishnah of the whole Masechta, which was how we compared and contrasted Dinei Mamanis and Dinei Nefashis. How many Eidim do you need? Do you need Dayanim, 3, 23, 71. Now, and as the Masechta goes along, we delve deeper and deeper and deeper. Now the parak begins with a Mishnah discussing, contrasting different dinim and processes between Dinei Mamanis and Dinei Nefashis. Says the Mishnah, B'drisha v'chakira. Both of them require drisha v'chakira. We'll see exactly what that means. Rashi already lays down the framework. Chakiras and drishas are what? We probe, we inquire, we ask questions of the Eidim. So Dinei Nefashis and Dinei Mamanis both share this quality in which there are going to be questions asked to inquire of the Eidim. Continues the Mishnah. Where do we know this from? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, the pasuk that we just saw in Rashi, Mishpat Echad Ya'alochem. Explains the Mishnah. So ma bein Dinei Mamanis to Dinei Nefashis. So what's the difference? Dinei Mamanis b'shleisha, Dinei Nefashis b'shleisha, as we saw back at the beginning of the Masechta, 3 verses 23. Dinei Mamanis paische bein lezchot. When it comes to Dinei Mamanis, we open up with statements, whether it's positive, negative, Zakai, Chiyov, whereas Dinei Nefashis, Poischen, Lezchos. Whereas when it comes to Dinei Nefashis, we only begin a case with a Schos, whereas in Poischen, Lechayva, we do not begin with a statement that could be a Chiyov. Dinei Mamanis, Matin al Pi Echad. Dinei Mamanis could be swayed by even one person, bein Lezchos, bein Lechayva, whereas Dinei Nefashis, Matin al Pi Echad Lezchos. To make the guy not chayiv, to acquit the guy, you can have one, whereas al Pi Shnayim Lechayva, you need two to make someone chayiv. Dinei Mamanis machzirin, bein Lezchos, bein Lechayva. By Dinei Mamanis, continues the Mishnah, you could be chayzer. You could reverse the case, whether it's the chayva, whether it's the schos. Dinei Nefashis machzirin lezchos, whereas ve'in machzirin lechayva. Continues the Mishnah. Dinei Mamanis akom landin schos, v'chayva. Dinei Nefashis akom landin schos, ve'in akom landin chayma. Continues the Mishnah with regard to being melamid schos. Only by Dinei Mamanis could anyone do it. By Dinei Nefashis, anyone could bring his chus to the table, but not a chayva. Dinei Mamanis amalamid chayva. When it comes to Mamanis, the one who is malamid chayva, malamid chus. Malamid chus, malamid chayva. By Dinei Mamanis, it goes both ways. You could introduce either side of the coin. Whereas Dinei Nefashis amalamid chayva, malamid chus. The one who says chayiv could then come back and say zakai. He cannot revert back to teach a chiyuv. Continues the Mishnah, 2 lines on the white lines. Dinei Mamanis, done in b'yayim v'goymer b'leila. Monetary cases we educate by day, we complete the case at night. In a fasha, it's done in b'yayim, but v'goymer b'yayim, you have to complete the case by day. Continues the Mishnah, Dinei Mamanis, goymer bin b'yayim, goymer by b'yayim, bein l'schos, bein l'chayva. Dinei Mamanis, you could conclude the case for either zakai or chiyav b'yayim. Whereas the first white line, Dinei Nefashis, goymer b'yayim l'schos. Whereas b'yayim shela'acharav, the next day l'chayva. Lefikach ein danim, and therefore, because there's that potential by a Dinei Nefashis of having a 2-day din Torah, therefore says the Mishnah, ein danim lo be'erev Shabbos lo be'erev Yontif. Why? Because you're not going to have that second day. Dinei Mamanis, continues the Mishnah. when it comes to dinim amnes, atameos v'atayros maschilim min atameim v'atayros maschilim min agadol, whereas din nefashos maschilim min atzad. When it comes to dinim amnes, when it comes to dinim amnes, hat tomois v'atayros, mamanis, toma and tayra maschilim min agadol. We start from the most chashav of all of them. Din nefashos maschilim min atzad. We start from the least chashiv. Ha'kol kasheros ladon dinei nemamanis, ve'nakol kasher ladon dinei nefashis. Everyone is kasher dinei nemamis, and everyone is kasher dinei nefashis. Elo kohanim, leviim, v'yisraelim, hamasiyim lekuna. When it comes to dinei nefashis, it has to be kohen levi and Yisrael who are eligible to marry kohanim. But anyone that's going to have a psol will not be able to educate dinei nefashis. So long and lengthy list in the Mishnah contrasting dinei nemamis and dinei nefashis. And with that, we begin the Gemara, which begins with the beginning of the Mishnah, which is the din of Drisha v'chakira being a constant, being the same din both of din nemamis and din nefashis. Says the Gemara, din nemamis bi'inan Drisha v'chakira. What do you mean? Do you need Drisha v'chakira or din nemamis? For a minute, we'll ask you, contradiction star says manai kosav echa b'nisan. The Shemitah star that's written on the first of Nisan of the Shemitah Yeruba. Eidim and Eidim come v'amru hechatam Eidim al star zeh. How could you have testified in the star of Alibiyah Pliny on that date? Imanu ayisem a classical azama bakam Pliny star kosher, but v'eidav ksherim. The star is kosher, and guess what? Even the Eidim are ksherim. Why? Says the Gemara, Chayshina, we're worried. Shami achru v'kasvuah. Maybe the date is wrong. Maybe the delayed and they wrote out a later date. Actually, the date was right, but it wasn't portraying the actual date that it happened, and therefore it could be that everything is kush. So explains the Gemara, if there is an element of Drisha v'chakira, if there is something called probing and inquiring and questioning when it comes to dinim amanis, hechi chayshinan. How could it be it's a different date? That's the whole premise of Drisha v'chakira, is to verify the facts. But if that's not the case, how would you be able to do it? Ask the Gemara 1 sec. Based on what you just said, take shilach misni son. The Mishnah itself is shver. Why is the Mishnah shver? Says the Gemara, shtar chayv amukdamim sulim. An earlier star is possible, and a post-dated star is kosher. If you need Drisha v'chakira, then how can you say muchar navai ksherin? How is the star muchar kosher? Says the Gemara, haloi kasha, ta'adifa mina kamrinon. Says the Gemara, that's not shver, because that which we asked in the Brisa is even bigger kasha than that we asked in the Mishnah. Why? Because it's not normal for someone to lend something the first of a Shemitah year. And therefore, there's a tzad to say, maybe you would not see such a svara. Why? Because a lender would not want to undermine the credibility of Ishtar by post-dating it on a Shemitah year, because it's not a normal time to have a halva due to the fact that Shemitah is mishamet all halvayos. Afilu hachi kim deshviyah, so even mishametes machshirin. Since lemaisa, the end of Shemitah is mishamet, so therefore it's shayich to have halva during Shemitah, so it's even bigger chiddush. Says the Gemara, okay, now you explain to me why we asked from the Brisa, not the Mishnah, but says the Gemara, lemaisa mikol makaim kasha lemaisa seif kol seif. It's shver on the Mishnah, and the Gemara leaves it as a kasha. From there we continue another siman, and we remind ourselves of the incredible simanim of the Zichru program. We've fallen a little behind, but highly encourage everyone to get involved, as it has helped so many really remember and know the Gemara at a different level. We continue 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Chanina. Devar Torah midaraisa chadinim avmasachadinim fashais b'drisha v'chakira. Says the Gemara, midaraisa, whether it's mamanis, whether it's capital crimes, you need drisha v'chakira. Shenemar, as the Mishnah quoted, Mishra Achriya lachem. O matam amru, what is the reason that we said dinim mamanis? Loy b'na drisha v'chakira. Why lemaisa? Do we say that Dini Mamines does not? Says the Gemara, you know why? Because if Lamais is going to be Drisha Chakira, people are not going to want to lend money. Ela me'ata, but says the Gemara, if this is true, and we move over to Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, Ta'u lo yishalmu. Says the Gemara, if the Dayanim made a mistake, Ta'u lo yishalmu, they should not have to pay the damages. Why? Since there was no Drisha V'Chakira. There's a halacha that if Dayanim make a mistake, they are held accountable. But says the Gemara, if the Dayanim didn't have a chance to prevent it, if the Dayanim weren't able to do the appropriate Drishas V'Chakira's questions and probing, etc., why are they chayiv? Says the Gemara, Kol Shkein Shetil Delos B'Fnei Lavin. Says the Gemara, what? You're going to tell me the Dayanim can make a mistake and they're not going to have to pay for their mistake? Then certainly no one's going to want to lend money. And therefore, says the Gemara, we are forced with no other choice but to say that Lamais is no Drisha V'Chakira and the Dayanim have to pay. There's no other way around it. Rava says another pshat. Masisan dahacha bedine kinasais. Our Mishnah is dealing with dine kinasais. That's why there's Drisha V'Chakira, whereas the Bryce is dealing it by dais v'halvayos. A third pshat, Papa Amar, Aidvadi v'adav halvayos. Kan bedin meruma, kan bedin she'inai meruma. What is this din? Because the Rish Lakish Rami. Rish Lakish asked the following kasha. Din meruma literally means a fraudulent claim, and one is where it's not. Explains the Gemara. Says the pasuk. You should judge with righteousness. Uksiv in the pasuk says sadik tir doif. Pasuk says you should pursue righteousness. How do we explain this? Kan bedin meruma. In the second part, which says you should be tzedek, extra careful. That's if it seems, if they get a sniff, if they don't feel it's fraudulent. Kan bedin she'enoi meruma. Whereas in the first pasuk, it's done with a case that does not appear to be fraudulent. That's going to be the same teretz by us. Rav Ashi Amar, another way of explaining these psukim, why one says one says two. Mas Nisan Kedishanina. Krai Echad Din Echad L'Pshara. The pasuk by Rish Lakish are not a stira. Why? Because Echad L'Din ve'Echad L'Pshara. Two different psukim. One is for a din, one is for a pshara. As we've already seen in the first parak, that there are differences between when the dayanim are ruling on the letter of the law, they're making a pshara. Kedetanya is learned in a brisa. Sedek, tirdaif. Says the brisa, you have to run after sedek. What does it mean? Echel din, v'echel pshara. Ketzad. Two boats are passing each other, and they bump into each other on a... They bump into him on a, Baguz is at a narrow passage. If they're both going to try to go through, they're both going to sink. If they go one after another, both have to pass. So now one has to move out to let the other one pass. Two camels that are going up a narrow mountain. They bump into each other. If they both go up together, then what? They're both going to fall. They're both able to go up. What's the case? One camel, one boat is loaded, one is not loaded. So we pushed away the one that's not loaded. Or one is close or one is not close. So in a similar vein, but says the Brisa, however, then what? Make a compromise and let them compensate one onto another. So explains the Gemara, you know why it says sedek? The reason is because of the case of a compromise, meaning there are certain times that you can paskin, you can know which boat comes first, you can know which camel comes first. Then the other times that no, you have to go down the road of Abshara, figuring out how to make, we'll call it the best of a difficult situation. Tana Rabbanan continues the Gemara. Tzedek, tzedek. Tir doiv halach achar bezdin yafa. We darshan in the pasuk you should go after good bezdin. Echad Rabbi Eliezer lelod. Echad Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai libar chayo. Whether Rabbi Eliezer belod or Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai down the bar chayo. We take a left turn. Tana kol rechayim beborni. The voice, the sound of the Rechayim of the mill in the town of Borni, Shvua Habein, Shvua Habein. It's as if they're announcing the week of the sun. Or Haner, the light of the candle, Bibar Chayel, Mishteh Sham, Mishteh Sham, as if they're announcing that there is a feast over there. So the first one, it was, during Rashi explains, the Romans had a decree they cannot give out the children, you cannot give a bris milah, and therefore they did it all secretly. So how would they announce it? They would announce it by having the local mill to make extra loud noise that people would know that there is a bris. They use this as symbolic to the medicinal herbs they used to put on the bris milah. And similarly, in the second case was they lit extra candles to show that there was a wedding. And this is just, again, digression once we said the name Beror Chayil. Continues the Gemara, Tanar Rabbanan, Tzedek Tzedek Derva, Al-Chacher Chachamim Liyeshiva, Liyeshiva, Acher Rav Eliezer Lelod, Acher Yochanan ben Zakkai lebar chayo, Acher Rav Yeshua leBekiyin, Acher Rav Gamliel Yavne, Acher Rav Akiva leBnei Brak, Acher Rav Masa leRoimi, Acher Rav Chanina ben Tradion, of course, L'Sakini, Acher Rav Yosef Zipari, Acher Rav Yehuda ben Meseir leNesivin, Achar Yishol leGoyl, Achar Rebbe leBeis Sharim, Achar Chamlish, because it's all the incredible places to go and to have a entire appropriately. Pick it up from here, B'siyata Dishmaya.